Hi everybody, welcome to the Payday YouTube channel, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. So far all I've done is some Ultra Moon Nuzlocke runs, and I've done like 5 of them so far, and they've been going pretty well, but I'm ready to try something else. I mean, I'm going to go back to it of course, but I'm going to try something else in the meantime. I want to talk about a little Reddit post I posted on r/Pokemon last week. It was just a thought that popped into my head when I was sort of out playing Pokemon Go and walking my dog one day, and I just kind of thought, I was thinking about all these things from my childhood that I used to think about in Pokemon, like all these different theories about things that you could do in the original games, and like, stuff you believed as a kid that kind of got circulated around the playground, and I thought maybe I would ask Reddit what they thought. And typically when I post stuff on Reddit, I don't really get a lot of, I don't post much, but if I do post, I get like, 5 upvotes, 10 upvotes. This time I got 205, which doesn't sound like a lot when you see some of the other posts where they've got like thousands of upvotes and stuff. But like for me, that was big. I was like, wow, 205 people upvoted, 134 comments about some crazy playground rumors and to do with Pokemon. So I thought we'd go through it together. I've only seen a couple because, I was just at the beginning initially looking at what people were commenting. And then when I got so many, I was like, wow, this is a great content for a video. So I guess we're going to go through them together. So before we get into this, if there's any kind of school playground rumors that you remember when you were a kid learning about Pokemon that, you hadn't checked. I mean, nowadays it's so easy to kind of check. We can do like I've done here. We can go on Reddit and we can look at what posts there are. But back then, you didn't have the internet like we do now. So like you just believed stuff. You had to try things out, and like it's crazy. So I'm gonna go through mine. I'm gonna read my one out first. I will talk about mine a little bit, and then we'll move on to what other people say, and we'll see if they kind of strike any sort of chords with me. And if they do with you guys, please drop a comment below and maybe consider leaving a like if you feel like it. If this is good content, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, because I want to know what you guys like. So I'm not going to waste your time too much longer. I'm going to get straight into it. So my post said, what were some crazy playground rumors you believed as a child? For me, Mew being under the truck was huge for everyone. But when I was a kid playing Pokemon Crystal, I was told if I beat Red and got a full living dex, then went to the Ilex Forest with a level 100 Pokemon and knocked out 100 Pokemon, Celebi would appear to punish me for bullying Pokemon, then I could catch it. Needless to say, I didn't try it, and I'm glad I didn't, but it makes you wonder how many other people had similar experiences. If you feel like sharing them, I'd love to read some. So, some clarity on that that post. When I was a kid, I remember I had a friend, we'll call him Johnny, and he told me that, he went into Ilex Forest with like a level 100 Pokemon and was just knocking out tons of low-level Pokemon, just like for fun, I guess, because at level 100 you're not getting EXP. I don't know why he was doing it, but he said after a while, like a little voice box appeared on the screen that said, hey, stop bullying Pokemon, or something along these lines of like, hey, stop bullying Pokemon, I'll teach you to pick on some of your own size, something around that. It was along those lines. And then he said that Celebi appeared and he had a battle with it, and I was amazed. But back then, when I was young, I had a cheat cartridge so I could get Mew, because Mew was one of my favorite Pokemon after seeing Pokemon the first movie. So I had a Celebi because I just used the Game Shark to get one, so it wasn't too much of an issue for me. So I didn't bother trying it because I was like, oh, why do I want to do that when I've already got a Celebi? And like when I was a kid, I didn't care if it was real or fake. To be fair, I don't nowadays. I mean, it's another story for another day, I guess. But like, I have a lot of fake Pokemon that have probably been traded to me over like Pokemon Home and stuff, and I'm not deleting them because it's like the way I consider it is like Pokemon the first movie. Like, you have clone Pokemon, and they're still Pokemon. They're still valid. Mewtwo is a valid Pokemon, and he's a clone. So I kind of just I like to think of it as I'm adopting a clone that nobody wanted. Anyway, let's get back into this. So let's see what some other people said, and we'll see if they sort of sounded familiar to me or if they were completely new. Okay, so I did read this one. Let's go over. For me, it was Pokemon Emerald, I believe. I don't remember the specifics, but I heard that if I visited the Moss Deep Space Center after 100 launches, I'll be able to fly into space on a rocket and fight Deoxys and Jirachi. I actually believed it for a while, which is, while considering the number of launches is related to the amount of weeks that have passed since the creation of your save file, I believe. This does sound familiar, not to the extent of fighting Jirachi and Deoxys. I heard that you could get Deoxys. I don't know if I never clarified, actually. I don't remember if it meant you battled it or you just got given it, but like, Yeah, there's this bit in Moss Deep where like you go to the Space Center and they're like, oh, it's the 99th launch, and like they say it was a success or something like that, and like always looked like it was going to lead to something, and I guess it didn't. I don't know. Maybe I should look that up. But it's kind of cool how like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire they kind of brought back this kind of rumor with the Delta episode when you go up on Rayquaza into space and you get to battle Deoxys. So like they kind of did do this, but just like like after this event. It's a shame because I feel like this would have been like a really great way to incorporate a mythical Pokemon like Deoxys. So I like it. It's a good little rumor, but yeah, I don't really believe it. Okay, this one says, I too believed all the old Mew under truck whole day to catch, but I also started a rumor that got pretty big at my school. Story is, my cousin, who was a year older than me, left his Game Boy and Pokemon Red at our grandma's house, so when I went over and found it, I called him and asked if I could play it. He said yes, but don't save anything. I grinded his team like a madman, but did nothing else. I thought he might appreciate it, so I called him back asking if he wanted me to save. He got pretty mad and yelled at me to not save anything. Now, after being older, I totally understand his feelings, but back then I got mad that he was ungrateful for all my work to help him. I can relate, like little kids just don't understand, and they can be little shits. Like you gotta be careful. Like you don't know what you're. I remember, man, being a kid sucked. Like there was my brother's friend that like just reset my Pokemon save file for a laugh, like thought it'd be funny in front of like my brother and his friends, and I was absolutely crushed. I think that was Pokemon like Blue version. I was so sad. I remember crying a lot. I must have been about 6, 7. It was really sad. So I came up with a story that I was in the Safari Zone and I clicked on this one tree. Perfect story because there are 1 billion trees to check and you have limited steps there. And this Pokemon called Ninjix appeared. I told him I caught it and it drops this item called a Mystic Stone that could evolve a bunch of Pokemon like Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Electabuzz, basically all the Pokemon that didn't evolve. Then came the part I had been waiting for. He asked if I had saved. I said, no, you told me not to. Then he asked me which tree, and I told him I had no idea and had found it accidentally. For weeks, kids at our school would come up and ask me about it, and I kept making up shit. Like telling people in the beginning of the theme song for the Pokemon TV show you could see Ninjix for a split second if you looked hard enough. I don't think I ever told anyone the truth, but I know my cousin spent a ton of time looking for that tree, and 8-year-old me was reveling in my revenge. Wow. Lelouch the Great, that is incredible. Like, to come up with the story like that, like when you were so young, that was incredible. Ninjix is actually like a pretty valid Pokemon name as well. Like I believe that if somebody told me that when I was a kid. But God, yeah. Let's go back to the Mew under the truck. Okay, that was another one I remember when I was a kid, and I feel like it was the biggest playground rumor that grew because everybody thought Mew was under that truck. It was it got referenced in future games. It got referenced in all the other games where you go to Kanto, I think, except for Gold and Silver. But yeah, basically there was just one area that you could get to if you well, people said if someone traded you a Pokemon would cut because you could already learn it because you had the badge, so you didn't need to go on board the ship and get the HM. What I did when I was a kid was I did get the cut HM, but then I let myself get knocked out by all the other trainers on the ship, so that I woke up in the Pokemon Center off the ship. And basically what happens if you do these steps is that the ship won't leave the port like it will in normal circumstances. If you just leave the ship after you've been on it, it will depart and you won't be able to go back to that port again. But if you follow those steps, you can go back to that port and you can surf on the water. And if you go just to the right of the ship, there is a truck just sat there. It's the only time you ever see like a vehicle, like a truck or like a car or anything like that. And like there's no explanation, there's no interaction with it. You press A on it, nothing happens. Everybody was convinced Mew was under that truck. So like people will spend ages being like, oh, press, like you have to use strength on it, or like, oh, you have to cut it, and like you have to have a Machamp that's level 100 and you have to have beaten the Elite Four 100 times and you have to use strength to lift the car, and then Mew is underneath it. But of course that wasn't the case. In the later games you could find items there. I think that the lava cookie might be there or something, because it's like, oh yeah, you did the effort, here's a cookie. Not so much a playground rumor as much childhood naivety. My first Pokemon game was Pokemon Heart Gold. And when I first encountered Geodude, it was shiny, and I'd seen Geodude before in a couple of other games and in the anime, and they were all grey. And my brain came to the conclusion that, oh, my friends have Soul Silver and their Geodude is silver. I have Heart Gold, so all mine are gold. So the next day, we're showing each other our Pokemon, and some slick comes up while I'm talking about my gold Geodude and says, hey, why not trade Geodude so you can get a silver one and I can get a gold one, and we just go catch another if we like the old colour? To which I said, heck yeah, silver Geodude. I can't get those in my game. Good memories, honestly. I'm sorry, good memories? How are they good memories? Some guy just swindled you and stole your shiny Geodude. That's so sad. I'm really sorry to hear that. I could totally imagine that happening. I remember, I think it was Pokemon Crystal. The first Pokemon I ever encountered in that game was a shiny Sentra, and I remember it shined, and I didn't have any Pokeballs, and I couldn't catch it, and I had no idea what it was until much, much later, and I was like, oh my god, that was a shiny. It was amazing. I still remember that shine to this day. I remember a rumor going around that Pokemon Grey was going to be released after Black and White to fill the usual trio spot, Kyurem being the mascot. I was relieved, but also weirded out by the fact that a direct sequel came out, and I wonder what Pokemon Grey would have been like. I mean, I feel like everybody kind of thought this for a while. It's like Pokemon Stars and Pokemon all these ones where you kind of thought Pokemon Z and things like that. There was going to be a third version, but they didn't. They did something else, and I'm kind of glad that they did deviate from the usual format at that point and did a Black 2 and White 2. The one I do wish we could have seen was Pokemon Z, though. I reckon that would have been really cool. I feel like that should have happened, and it just didn't. My school never got the Mew under the truck rumour, but there was also a huge talk about Peekaboo. So as soon as the first movie on Marrow was in the short, my friends and I pointed at the screen and shout, Peekaboo, it's real. Turns out Peekaboo was just a lovable water type. I remember that, and I think you're in the right to call it Peekaboo. I'm pretty sure that's what an official source called it at one point, was Peekaboo. So people, it's understandable that you would call it that, and I'm glad they didn't call it that. I'm glad they called it Marrow, but crazy, really. Okay, there was this stone in Gold and Silver called the Mist Stone that evolved Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur to basically a Mega, a fourth evolution. You had to defeat the Pokemon League 50 times and then it would appear in the cave that is next to your house with the waterfall. It's one of these things. I love it. It's always beat the Pokemon League this many times, or beat this so many times. I remember somebody telling me a rumor once about beating the Pokemon League 365 times would make the SSM reappear, because 365 days, it would be a year, because they said that the SSM won't return for another year. It's kind of crazy, but I like the fact that they referenced the cave in the waterfall, because that did come back in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and they did an actual story around that involving Celebi and time travel. So I could see why people would make that rumor. It was grounded in some things, but it's kind of cool they predated Mega Evolutions before Mega Evolutions were a thing. The secret forest zone in Black and White with the Ghost Tree Pokemon? What is that? I cannot see anything about that. As soon as you put in Pokemon Black, White, Ghost Tree, Pokemon Phantom just comes straight away, obviously. I have no idea about that. Somebody in the comments let me know what that actually is. I have no idea what the secret forest zone in Black, White with the Ghost Tree Pokemon. I mean, I'm guessing they're talking about White Forest, but to what end? I don't understand what that has to do with anything. I remember the launch of Diamond Pearl very well. It wasn't a rumor so much as kids being kids, but I remember the kids had action replays. They would cheat in Arceus or Darkrai or Shaman and team sweep you and give you some weird esoteric tasks to get them. I think one child told you had to get your stars out of 100 and release it to unlock Darkrai's house. That's so harsh. Why would you make someone delete their starter? Raise it all that way and then just be goodbye, release. I remember I had to use a cheat cartridge. I remember having one. I wish I still had it, because they're worth so much money now. But yeah, I remember getting Arceus, Darkrai, and Shaman doing those events. They're really cool events, and if Gen 4 remakes ever happen, I really hope that they do bring those back and they actually bring us events. I mean, they have to. They can't not at this point, but we'll see, I guess. Bill's Secret Garden. Bill's Secret Garden was always a big one with Red, Blue, Yellow. The whole area behind Bill's house where actually strong Pokemon lived, that's where you could catch Mew. I remember listening to a bunch of older kids talk about it at summer camp and wanting nothing more than to see it. Bill's Secret Garden, another one I actually do kind of remember. Like, I feel like other people talk about it so much as people told me about it, but like Bill's Secret Garden was like a big deal. Like, if you look behind his house, there's just this huge gap. And it looks like it leads up to like another route or something, and like you just can't get up there, and it's just always there, just taunting you. Like, what's up here? I remember when Ruby and Sapphire came out, there was a rumor that if you caught Chimecho and waited around some of the graves at Mount Pyre, you'll get pulled under by a big hand and led to a place with a secret Pokemon. I've never heard anyone else talk about it or see anything on the internet about it, so I don't know if it was actually a widespread rumor or if my friend was just bullshitting. And also, there was another one my cousin believed, but I didn't believe. He thought there was a Pokemon called Purge in Diamond and Pearl because he saw a YouTube video on it back in the day. To this day, he still names his Piplups Ducky because that's what the guy in the YouTube video named his Piplup, and he thought that this step was absolutely mandatory to catching Purge. I love stuff like this. Like, it's just so weird. Like, the hands coming out of the grave, just like Zelda, with those like hands that grab you and like take you back to the entrance of the dungeon, and like, no, I've not heard either of these. But imagine like still calling your Piplups Ducky just because, like, what if? So weird. One we had in Ireland was Cerulean Cave held insanely strong Pokemon. No big deal, the game tells you that, but if you got to the deepest part of the cave, you'd find two all-powerful unknown Pokemon. If you chose to interact with one, you had the chance to battle and capture it. If you chose the wrong one, your game would shut off and never turn on again, even with fresh batteries. That was enough for 7-year-old me to put my game and Game Boy in a cabinet for a few weeks in fear. That's horrifying. Oh, man, that sucks. Like, imagine being told that as a kid, like, there's two Pokemon, and if you, like, encounter one and it's the wrong one, you'll never be able to play your Pokemon ever again, and even your Game Boy just stops working. Like, man, that would be insane, though. Imagine if, like, Pokemon put that in their game. That would be horrific. Another Peekaboo. I remember back in the day, there was a rumor that if you traded Pikachu back and forth between two games 100 times, it would become a Peekaboo. Of course, when we actually tried it and it didn't work, turned out Peekaboo was actually Marill. All these people just like seeing Marill and being like, oh, I know what you have to do, you just have to do this, and then you'll get one. And it's like, who started these rumors? The rumor I heard was for Pokemon Yellow. Kids would say that if you faced your Pikachu and mashed a bunch of buttons, it would make it angry and zap you, killing your character and sending them to heaven. Your character would be able to progress the game, but that was where you could capture Mew, and then you could have Mew? I mean, it depends how much you want Mew, I guess. Like, imagine they were like, okay, you got Mew, but like now you can't do anything else. You're stuck up in heaven, and it's just nothing up here. And like, you've got a Mew though. Like, that's what you wanted, right? You wanted Mew. I like this one. I like this one a lot. Like, telling people you could get it, but like, that's it. Once you got it, you're done. This one isn't something I heard elsewhere, but it makes me mad to this day. I was on a volleyball team with a girl who convinced me there was a way to get the Aurora ticket for Mew in Fire Red by beating the Elite Four again under certain circumstances. Pretty standard stuff so far. I had beaten them a handful of times and never gotten it, so I wasn't totally convinced, but she offered to borrow my game and get it for me. So I said of course. When I got my game back, my favourite Pikachu, my only Togepi, and probably some other things I never noticed were gone. Oh. So I asked her about it. It wasn't even a thought in my mind that she would have stolen them, and she convinced me that a certain amount of time there was a random chance of a Pokemon dying of old age. Like, actually dying and disappearing permanently. They'd have a gravestone show up in the Lavender Town Tower thing and everything. But it was random, so if you reset a save and came back, it would be undone. It never occurred to me at the time that if that was the case, why didn't she reset the save for my Pokemon? I believed it for at least a year. I saved every time I flew anywhere, every time I caught something, just constantly. I was terrified my favourite buddies that were left would also die. I never did get that Mew or find those gravestones. Togekiss is now my favourite Pokemon, so I'm even more sad that my very first ever Togepi can't be the ancestor of all my Togekisses from now on. That's so sad. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. That horrible friend of yours that just, like, stole your Pokemon and then just made this horribly elaborate lie to just, like, cover her tracks. Like, that's so sad. Oh no. Bringing all three Swords of Justice to the place behind Alda's house would unlock Keldeo. I mean, yes, I was about to say exactly what the person below said. I mean, you're onto something at least. Like, there is a thing behind the house that has something to do with Keldeo, and I guess it does unlock Keldeo. Like, if you take Keldeo to the the rock behind Alda's house. We literally talked about this in the last podcast episode. But like, yeah, if you go back there with your Keldeo, like the Swords of Justice will appear and Keldeo can unlock its Resolute form. So there's stuff there behind that. So maybe someone didn't lie to you. They just like you. They worded it in a way that made you not understand it properly. I don't know. The big three rumors that I always heard about. Mew under the truck. I'm sure we all heard this one. Yeah, we did that one. The Mist Stone. We did this one as well. It varied a bit. It usually involved getting the item finder in Cerulean Cave. But it did also varied, but usually dealt with evolving Mew. Like, see, the Mist Stone was just one of these things that I guess, like, people remembered and then they just decided what it did themselves. They made it all up. Pokegods. Again, something I'm pretty sure we all heard. Usually achieved by beating the E4 something like 300 times, and then Oak will take you to build Secret Garden. I'm surprised it took this long to get to the Pokegods. Like, that is a whole episode in itself, and I probably will do the Pokegods at some point. We'll just go over some, but it is wild. In the meantime, though, like, check out this episode of Silph Radio on the Pokegods. I'll leave a link just in the description down below. But, like, yeah, Nathan is, like, an amazingly, like, intelligent person that, like, talks about all the... he talks about like all these different subjects. I'm plugging another podcast because I genuinely think that the content he produces is incredible. He does this amazing podcast episode on the Pokegods and like talks about all these different versions of it and like all these varieties and like really worth a listen. I couldn't recommend it enough. It is on YouTube as well, so go check that out. Pokemon Red, Yellow and Blue. Our neighborhood knew that we could glitch into these weird numeric cities by using that weird glitch at the Safari's entrance and then waste the step somewhere outside. Since the place you spent the last step would determine how the glitched numeric world looked, we assumed that we had to go to a specific place in that glitched world without crashing the game to find Mew. Supposedly, finding and examining the truck that glitched in the glitch world would actually make Mew appear. That's a really good theory. Like, the whole glitch city is like insane, and like glitch city is just one of those things that like only like a few people probably remember, but like is a whole Gen 1 thing where you could like glitch out the Safari Zone and then just go to this like just like a numeric city. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's like the cities you've been to, but they're all just like in their most base form, and it looks so strange. The idea of going and finding the truck to get Mew, that sounds insane. I would love that if that was true. That would be really, really cool. God, I wish that. That's such a wasted opportunity. Damn, they should have done that. But I guess they didn't know what they were getting into. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and comment down below if you have any that weren't talked about today or that are worth talking about. I'd happily do a follow-up video if there are more, because like this is a really cool thing to talk about. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. Yeah, please check out the podcast. It's on this channel, but you can also find it on Spotify or anywhere podcasts are found. That is Payday, a Pokemon podcast. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.